Hey podcast, just before we get you to this episode, I wanted to invite you to join us at pageantlaunch.com. We are starting the world's first dedicated pageant review site, and we want you to join our launch team. All you need to do is put in your email address. It's completely free. We are looking to make the pageant industry safe, transparent, and fair, and we'd love your input on how to do that. So head over to pageantlaunch.com, whack in your email address, and let's get you to this episode.
I'm Sarah Davies. I'm your International Ms. Great Britain 2020, and this is my interview with the Pageant Project.
Hey everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project, and I have with me Sarah Davies, who is International Miss GB 2020. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, I've been told by our mutual acquaintance, Danielle Latimer, that I have to interview Sarah. So in case you're wondering, that's who you've got to thank or have a word to after this. But Sarah, why don't we start with the easy stuff? Talk us through your pageantry background, and then we'll get on to the other things. But how did you get involved in pageantry to begin with?
So I got involved with pageantry completely by accident. So I was working in a pub in Leeds when I was a student, and there was an advertisement for the Miss Leeds pageant in one of the local magazines that kind of gets run around the city. And it was an advertisement for Miss Leeds, and then the people behind the bar were just like, oh, you should enter. And I was like, oh no, it's really not for me. It's not my thing. And I guess I kind of had that stereotype about pageantry. And anyway, one thing led to another, and I put an entry in, and I was like, okay, you know what, I'll do it for a little bit of fun. I'll keep them happy and that kind of thing. And I went to the Miss Leeds final, my first pageant, and I look back on the photos now, and I'm like, Sarah, you had no idea about pageantry. But I then ended up winning Miss Leeds and went to the Miss England final, which was a 4-day final, which then leads down to Miss World. And I was unbelievably out of my comfort zone, which is actually when I met Danny. So she's one of my very first pageant sisters from the 2012 Miss England class, which is really cool. We've kind of grown up through it together, which is awesome. And so I did 4 days at Miss England, and by the end of it, I was like, oh, that was horrific. I'm really hungry, this, that, and the other. Okay. And then, kind of a couple of weeks later, I'm like, actually, that was really good fun, and I had a great time. And I realized that pageantry is more than what you see, from the outside at first. You look at that deeper level of it, and I realized I could use it as a platform for everything that I do now. And it's been, that was 8 years ago, and I'm still here and I'm still competing. So it obviously paid off.
Absolutely. So it wasn't exactly love at first sight or love at first pageant for you then?
No, I mean, when I did Miss Leeds, it was a really small, local pageant. There was 20 girls just in a local bar. And, it's very different to then go to Miss England. And I was just so out of my depth. In fact, one of my first memories of getting to Miss England was I hadn't put my heels on yet, because I literally just got to the hotel, out of a taxi, got the train down there and stuff. So I had flats on, and I was waiting for the lift, and it was actually Steph Hodgson, which a lot of the kind of pageant girls will know Steph. She's kind of one of Holly's right-hand women, and she was stood with her heels on at the entrance to the lift, and at 5'4", if you know how tall Steph is, and then put heels on her, I just kind of went, and I was like, what have I let myself in for? But yeah, the 4 days were interesting, to say the least. And a lot of the girls from that class of 2012 have gone on to win some big crowns. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I'll just bring you up to date with the comments. So Shaz Miller has said, I've been looking forward to this one. She's not only pretty, but strong. Great combo. Love it. And guys, if you have any comments, whack them in any questions or messages, whack them in the comments below. I think most of you know how this works now, and I'll pass them on to Sarah. If you're brave, you can message your number into the comments and we'll call you, and then you can ask your question to Sarah live on air.
That's cool.
But we've just started trialing this. Not many people have been game to put their number in yet, Sarah, but we'll see. And Sarah, let's talk about the flip side with the weightlifting. Tell us about that, how you got involved with that. And then I'd love to ask you how you do both, because a lot of pageant girls say I'm not a typical pageant girl, but I'm fairly certain you're the first one I've interviewed that's competed in the Commonwealth Games and won a medal. So let's just talk about the weightlifting, how you got involved with that to begin with.
So I also started weightlifting when I was at uni, so it was around about the same time. So I started weightlifting in like the September 2011, and Miss Leeds was the following March 2012.
Right.
So I started weightlifting. I met my then boyfriend, which is a whole controversial topic because we broke up like last year. I met him. He was a weightlifter. We've been dating for like 6 months before I finally got in the gym and gave it a try. Tried it out. Turns out I was quite good at it. And then a couple of months later, did my first competition. And 8 years later, I'm now in the middle of qualifying for the Olympic Games. And like you said, I've won a medal at the Commonwealth Games, which was in Australia on the Gold Coast, which was super fun. Like, that was a really cool Games. You guys did a good job, and it is in Birmingham next time, and I'm not sure we're going to do such a good job.
I've heard interesting stereotypes about Birmingham. And for those of you who don't know, the Gold Coast is probably the biggest tourist destination in Australia. It's sunny, it's full of beaches, and it would be very difficult for anyone coming from the UK to, I think, go back. But you kind of glossed over it a little bit, and I understand that's out of humility. But I mean, how do you get started to begin with? Because there aren't, I'd like to think there are more girls now entering what have been traditionally male-dominated sports, and that's great because now we have strong female role models such as yourself, encouraging girls to do whatever they want. What was it that attracted you to weightlifting? I've done a little bit of it, and I didn't think I would like it at all. When I first saw it, I thought it looked very boring. But then when I started, I was drawn to how much concentration and how technical it actually was, Olympic lifting. So what really dragged you in? What got you hooked into the lifting?
I mean, firstly, you don't meet many people who actually understand Olympic lifting. So good job to you, because people kind of expect you to be a bodybuilder when you say you do weightlifting.
No.
I mean, I think the thing that drew me in, so I was a gymnast as a kid, and I stopped doing that for a couple of reasons. And since I stopped that, I've just had this like crazy amount of time in my life that I'd never really managed to fill. Like when I started as a student, I went out partying and stuff, but this is not the same like level of, interest and everything else. And, it only lasts so long and kind of the novelty wears off. And then I found weightlifting, and it is, like you said, it's so technical. Like, you don't realize when you watch it. But that like breakdown of the lifts and having to be so aware of your body and where the bar is, and it's really easy to track your progress too. Like if you play another sport, say if you play like a team sport or something like that, like you can't really tell if you're getting better. There's no like hard measurable, because there's so many other factors. So it's really cool to be able to just see your progress. And that for me was a massive thing. And so one of the reasons I stopped doing gymnastics and part of my platform for pageantry is I was actually bullied as a kid as a gymnast for being muscular. And I remember when I started weightlifting, my mum was like, are you sure? Like, you kind of had to go through all of that. Whereas now I'm in a position as a grown woman where I've got more muscle now than I did then. Yeah, I'm happier in my body now, because once a woman hits puberty and gets all those changes to her body, like the muscle then just adds to it. Like, whereas as a young girl, when you haven't got that kind of body fat in all the right places, it does give you a little bit more of a boy type figure. But like at that age, all figures are pretty similar anyway. So, whereas now it gives you the Kim Kardashian bum that everyone wants. Like, one of my biggest questions whenever I'm at a pageant is, how do I get a bum like yours? Or it's like, you know what, the amount of girls that go, can I touch your bum?
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's girls, not guys.
I mean, the guys will probably try it, but they might get a slap for it. So
good.
But yeah, like, and that's the thing with weightlifting. And because it is traditionally a male-dominated sport, when I first started, I had success really quickly, which I think probably helped me because, you know, you could go to a national championships and win a medal because there was only 3 people there. Whereas now, you know, it's really difficult as a woman to even qualify for nationals and stuff. And it's kind of cool because it's made the sport grow and more people are pushing each other and we're getting much more success internationally and stuff too. And when I do a lot of talks in schools and stuff, and, you know, the teachers and the staff are in there like, oh, you weren't what I expected when they said we were going to get a weightlifter in, and they expect me to be like 6'2", like shoulders just as wide and look like held with a brute or something. Like, right. It's certainly an interesting one, and people have the stereotypes of weightlifters just like they have them of pageant girls. So it's kind of cool to break both of those stereotypes. And like you said, everyone says they're not a typical pageant girl, and I don't think there is such a thing as a typical pageant girl, like, because everyone brings their own thing to the table and to the community, which is super cool. But yeah, weightlifting is like allowed me to travel all over the world too, which is incredible and is definitely one of the perks of being good at it. Like I said, the Gold Coast was insane and almost didn't come home. I had 2 dogs.
You're not the first person to tell me that.
Yeah, it was the dogs that brought me home, basically. So, yeah.
Just out of interest, you said that girls ask you, how do I get a bum like yours? And I've done a bit of lifting. I've done a lot of tennis, so probably not quite the same, but I've got a very big butt and big legs, so much so that normal clothes never fit me. But what do you actually say when girls ask you? Because when I hear that, what I think of someone, I can't remember who said it, but when someone was asked a similar question, they said, do you really want to know, or are you just asking? So when girls ask you that question, what do you actually say?
Generally, I reply with lots of hard work and very heavy squats. Because to kind of put it into context, like, my back squat is like 180 kilos, which is more than 3 times my own body weight. So it's heavy squats. That's, and, you know, you see, frightening. For me, it's frustrating. Because you see all these, like, Instagram challenges and these 30-day squat challenges, and it's just with body weight, and like, yeah, that's going to make some difference, but to grow a muscle like to that extent, you have to load it. So I'm also terrible at tennis, by the way, so fair play to you. My hand-eye coordination is non-existent.
I'm not going to criticize you at all. I mean, I know that a gymnast would make for a very good lifter because of the body awareness. And similarly, coming from a tennis background, you have to be very body aware to hit a shot properly. And I was fascinated by the fact that you actually needed that for lifting. But just to put it in perspective, so your back squat, you said, it's 180 kilos. What are some of the other numbers, just to give? Because I do love the Insta challenges, because people are doing, anything is better than nothing, and a lot of people at the moment are turning into donuts and couch potatoes. And you know, push-ups, squats, whatever is better than nothing. But give us an idea of the other numbers, just to put it in perspective.
So the most weight I've put above my head is 130 kilos. So that is double body weight. So you're looking at, 2 of me, which is a lot. And, you know, when you actually load that on a barbell, it's a lot of weight. And the best, like, so snatch is straight from floor to overhead. So the best I've done for that is 101 kilos. And then clean and jerk is to shoulders and then overhead, which is where I've done the 130. Just for a little bit of background for some people, but most of the pageant girls that follow me, I'm sure they get fed up of following me on Instagram and seeing my weightlifting stuff. They're like, I'm not here for this, but Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's very different to what everyone else is putting up on Instagram. Have you got a TikTok account out of interest? Because that's where everyone is at the moment.
I haven't TikToked. I'm trying to work out if I'm a little bit too old to TikTok.
Sarah, if I'm on it, anyone can be on it, believe me. But I'm just
Okay.
imagining, because that's where everyone has to show a sense of humor. And I'm sure maybe not yourself, but I'm sure you have seen some weightlifting bloopers or funny things in the gym. You must have.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've done my fair share of bloopers in my time as well, but it could make for interesting TikToks, that's for sure.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't really want to encourage this, but have you actually had any serious injuries or any injuries? Because I've seen some people, not with weightlifting, but more with the CrossFit side of things.
Yeah, so CrossFit is good and bad. Like, CrossFit has made weightlifting huge, but also you get a lot of bad form and stuff. But
Exactly.
my worst injuries, I actually I fractured one of the vertebrae in my spine. So I basically broke my back.
How did you do that?
So it was in competition, and I kept hold of it because it was for a gold medal at Europeans, but basically I did the jerk and my bum stayed back and my shoulders, so my back was kind of at this angle, and just the pressure on, like, so your vertebrae have got like the little tails down the back where they kind of slot on top of each other, and it was just one of those tails that just got a little fracture in it, and then kind of ignored it and carried on loading it to try and qualify for the Rio Olympics, and it just, didn't go so well.
Kind of ignored it. A broken back. That's. Did you know that you had done something? Did you feel something, or no idea? Just pain.
At the time I came off and thought, like, I went, that hurt my back. But obviously with adrenaline and everything, like, you can't ever tell the true sense of it. And it wasn't until a few months later that we really realized what I'd done. And at the time I was fortunate enough to have all the top medical support because we had funding in the country, whereas now I'm not actually paid to be an athlete by the government.
Right.
So I saw all the top doctors and stuff, and they kind of went, look, we'll manage it and we'll keep it, like, you're not going to cause yourself any damage keeping training for the qualification process for Rio. And then if you qualify, we'll reassess again. But if not, like, then we'll start a rehab program. And it just wasn't meant to be with my qualification. So, took some time off and healed it, and touch wood, I've been all right ever since. So.
For sure. It still boggles my mind that you broke your back and you just sort of carried on. Richard Torres has said, or Torsi has said, 101 kilogram snatch was a British record. I was there cheering Sarah on. Was it a British record, was it?
It was at the British Championships last year. So I was head to head against one of my teammates, and she snatched 100, which made a British record, and then I went out and
you snatched 101.
Yeah.
Wow. Just obviously everyone is in isolation at the moment, and you were in preparation for the Olympic Games. So how have you found the whole of isolation and training? Because I mean, I can't go to my gym at the moment. It's simply not allowed. It's shut down. So how have you found training with everything that's going on with Corona?
It was interesting. So obviously when all the Corona stuff started about, like, we were supposed to have the European Championships last week, and they got postponed originally until June, but they've now officially just announced this week that that's not going to happen. But we kind of knew that wasn't going to happen. And it wasn't until we'd been in lockdown for a couple of days that the official Olympic announcement came out. The thing that was most frustrating with that was that we were only finding out about the Olympics at the same time everybody else was. So, like, we weren't getting any communication as athletes from the international committees and from our own committees. It was just, if it came up on BBC News, that was when we found out about it at the same time as anyone else found out about it. So, like, if I wasn't on my phone, like, I'd pick it up and have a bunch of messages from people being like, oh, how do you feel about the Olympics? And I'm like, oh, I've got no idea what's going on. Like, no one's told me anything. And, it's just people reading it in the media, which was frustrating. And then when it like, while that was all kind of going on, I was like, oh, it's all right. Like, it might be back end of this year or early next year, and just kind of holding out hope. And then when we had the finalized about it being, next summer, I had a little bit of a meltdown.
I can imagine.
Just because it's another 12 months of that stress and that pressure. Like, you've been working for this for the last 4 years, really. So to then have it pushed on another year is stressful, because you're pushing your body to its limits kind of every day to achieve that. And we don't really know when our next competition is going to be, which is what's making things most difficult, because to have that motivation to push yourself and to train is really difficult when you don't really know what you're pushing for. I've been fortunate that I've got good equipment sponsors, so they've sent me loads of stuff, and I've got a space to train outside of, just in the garden. So I'm very fortunate on that one, but it's difficult, and I'm kind of using this time to have some downtime and just step off the gas a little bit and sort of rejuvenate my body and my mind and get ready to hit the ground running again, once we do have some definite kind of competitions to aim for. Because, some people are still pushing really hard and they're like, oh, we're in lockdown, so I'm going to train even harder. And I'm like, if I do that, I'm just going to burn myself out. I've got another 12 months to keep pushing. And we don't know what the qualification procedure is going to look like now, with it being delayed as well, because we were almost at the end of qualifications. So we just kind of got to roll as it comes and just keep going. So
it's got to be super difficult. I mean, to bring it back to pageantry, obviously there are a lot of pageants that have been postponed, but I mean, any Olympic athlete will know that you sort of train for the games. For a lot of them, it's a once in a 4-year dream, and you have to sort of organize your training. I imagine weightlifting is the same, where you kind of taper off towards the end, because if you just keep pushing yourself, you're going to break your body and you won't perform better. So for you, imagining that the games was going to be in July and then be told it's not, and you've been sort of working up to that peak, and now you don't know when it is, I imagine that you would taper off a little bit, and then once everything else sort of was confirmed, then you'd start back. But it's got to be so tough, because you were training for 4 years towards that goal, and now it's been moved, but you don't know where to.
And it threw off my pageant schedule too. So I was planning to do the Olympics this summer, and then I was going to compete next year, when I kind of had some downtime away from sport before we hit the Commonwealth Games. And so once the Olympics got kind of moved and stuff, I was like, okay, I need a focus for this year, which is when I then was like, okay, I'm going to compete this year. And that's when I got my entry in for International Mes, and it's really exciting. And for me, it's important to have something to work towards, to just keep me focused. Obviously, it's different to my weightlifting goals, but like I said, now that the Olympics is next year, I won't be able to focus for pageantry next year, because that's going to be my focus. So, and then with Commonwealth Games, I won't be back on a pageant stage until 2023, if that was the case. So I was like, I've got to get up there this year, otherwise it's going to be a long wait till we get back on stage. So
Danielle Latimer has said your motivation is inspiring, Sarah. So Danielle's watching. Also, I don't know if you saw that Danielle wants to organize a pageant Olympics. She was actually wanting to organize it at the same time as the 2020 Olympics. And one of the things I remember her telling me was that she wanted to organize one of the days where they would compete and then have a large screen TV so they could cheer you on at the same time. So just so you know that. And her plan is to postpone that until the actual Olympics are on, so she still wants to do that. So shout out to the Pageant Olympics, because that's one of the things that she wants to do. She's very, very supportive, as you would know. But Sarah, can you give us an idea, how do you work in the pageant side with the weightlifting side? Because as we've discussed already, most pageant girls that I've interviewed will say they're not a typical pageant girl, and that's probably because there's no such thing anymore. But to a lot of people, the two things are very, very different. So what part sort of attracts you to the weightlifting versus what attracts you to the pageantry? Is it two different parts of your personality, or does it actually appeal to the same parts of your personality?
I mean, I think they probably appeal to the same parts of my personality. Like, I am, competitive, and if I'm doing something, I'm doing it wholehearted. I'm not someone who can just kind of do something just for fun. If I'm doing sport, I'm doing it to be competitive, and I'm doing it to be the best I can be.
I can understand that.
So, yeah, and I mean, the way I kind of look at it now is that weightlifting has become my job. Weightlifting is no longer a hobby for me. It is my job, and my livelihood depends on it, because that's how I run my business is through weightlifting, coaching. So pageants become my hobby, and they're almost like my get out from the sport world a little bit. Obviously sport is a big part of my pageant platform, but it gives me that opportunity to get out of my daily routine, because otherwise I work from home, so I'd be in my house and in the gym, and then I'd go to the shop to buy food. Like, that would be my life. So, and like we said, like, weightlifting is a male dominated sport, and before I started pageants, I didn't really have like that many female friends. Like, I struggled to connect with females, just because before I did weightlifting, I played golf as well, so another male-dominated sport. So I just never really had that, like, growing up. So I played golf from the ages of like 15 to 18. So that's a big time where you're developing as a young woman, and to be surrounded by a very male-dominated environment probably had some kind of effect on that, I guess. And then when I moved into pageants, I built a much bigger like female friend network and really became part of that sisterhood, and that's a huge thing for me, is that extended network of support. And in terms of like the competitiveness, like, I find I get more nervous competing in a pageant than I do competing in weightlifting, and that includes the Commonwealth Games. Because
that would surprise a few people.
Yeah, so it's because pageantry, like, it depends on the judges and on the day. You could give the same performance one day and the next day, and it's completely out of your hands. Whereas weightlifting, like, I've done the training, I know I'm strong, I know I've recovered well, I know I've made weight, and like, I know that if I go on that platform and give it everything, yeah, exactly. Whereas pageantry kind of goes more towards my gymnastics days, and it's a little bit more subjective, and it depends who you're in front of, and a little bit more, you could have a trip or whatever, and it can change. So to me, that's a challenge. And I remember when I was doing pageants in like 2017, and my boyfriend at the time, he goes to me, "You're not going to stop till you've got a national crown, are you?" I was like, "No." And then I won Miss Intercontinental England in 2018. And I went to the Philippines for the final, and I thought, that was going to be me done. And then while I was out there, I experienced quite a bit of like negativity from pageant fans, and also from the system, which was really frustrating. And I came back and I was like, okay, I'm done with pageants. And I remember talking to my director at some length about like everything that went on out there. And then I sat back and I went, actually, the negativity that I got gives me every more reason to compete again, to prove all those people wrong. And that's my personality. Like, tell me I can't and watch me try twice as hard to prove you wrong. And that was kind of me with weightlifting as well.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
A lot of people said I'd never be a top lifter, and then I've been to a Commonwealth Games and won a silver medal and almost had the gold medal. So the same kind of comes with pageantry. So I'm not going to stop until I'm satisfied, until I'm done, until I've made my point loud and clear.
Absolutely. I mean, you said that you get more nervous competing for the pageant, which you've explained, and I can certainly understand that, because there's a difference between the subjectivity of pageants and the objectivity of, you lifted the heaviest weight, therefore you win. What about when you win? Can you compare the two feelings? So winning the silver medal at the Commonwealth Games versus, let's say, winning the Intercontinental crown. Can you compare the feelings from those two at all? Because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. They're two very different, like, emotions, really, which just seems crazy, because, you'd think, oh, yeah, you've won something and, you should be happy about it. But, I've stood on top of the rostrum and heard the national anthem at a European under-23 championships, and that was something that was surreal. But again, like, you were in control of it. Like, the weight was on the bar, and that was, therefore I knew what I had to do. Whereas the pageant, like, I was in shock. Like, there's pictures and there's so many like memes that could be made from my facial expressions from those photos. Like, I remember like looking over to Dion and just being like, really? Like, shut up. And she just looked at me. She's like, yeah. I was like, okay. Yeah. And I had a big old grin on my face when I won the crown, because I'd worked, really hard for that. And at the time, I thought that was going to be the last time I competed, because then I was going to age out of Miss. But turns out that didn't put me off, and I'm back for Ms. But I remember there's a picture. I get to the end of the runway, and I've got the like scepter in my hand, and the first thing I do out of just is put it above my head like a weightlifting bar. Like
it's a bit lighter than what you're used to.
I'm in pageant land, and I still can't help but like overrule it with weightlifting. So, yeah, very different feelings. And I'd say I probably had more emotion winning the crown because it's kind of more unexpected. Whereas with weightlifting, so say like the silver medal, I was like, yeah, this is good, but I had the gold medal weight on the bar and I missed it. And that's the way I look at that as an athlete. Like it was good, but it wasn't good enough. And I actually, was a little bit disappointed in myself for a couple of days with it until I realized, like, Sarah, you're being an idiot. Like, you put 7 kilos more on the bar than you've ever had on the bar before in your life, and you missed it. Like, you can't be mad at yourself for that. But
that was a PB as well. So that was a PB attempt as well.
Yeah.
Right. Danielle has said that moment was iconic. Which moment, Danielle? The lifting the scepter or the lifting the weight? Sarah, tell us a bit about the pageant that you're entered into at the moment, because I haven't heard much about it before. So obviously we should give it its due. So you've won Miss Intercontinental, International Ms. GB. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So it's quite a new system. I think 2016 was when it started. So it is a system for women, like obviously Ms. So, and they recently just lifted the age limit because it was 49 and they've just lifted it completely. I think the lower limit is 26, I want to say, but don't hold me to that. And it is basically a system for women. Their catchphrases of elegance and enterprise. So it's for women who have, like a, kind of a business platform and, they're really kind of independent women that are doing their thing. The current reigning queen is in the US Navy. She's a dentist for them, which is really cool. So she's based out in Italy, actually. And yeah, it seems like a really cool system to be part of. So the reigning queen, Corinne she was around and did a shoot with Charlotte back in January, and she was kind of telling me, she was like, you should totally enter and everything else. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a thought. She was like, finals are in Vegas this summer. And I was like, I can't do this summer. I'm going to the Olympics and everything else. And it just seems like a really cool system that I want to be a part of. Like it is about, fully about the women and them making a difference. And you get a grant towards your like chosen charity or your business as part of your prize package. So yeah, it seems like a really cool system to be a part of, and it does seem to be growing. So at the finals they crown International Ms. and then International Ms. USA. So I guess it's kind of a little bit like Galaxy in that sense, that it has started as like a USA thing, but now they've got more and more like international crowns coming into the system. So maybe we'll see a GB heat coming soon. We shall see for next year, because at the minute it is just an application process for the finals. But as the system grows, I think we'll see more national heats for the girls to then qualify to go, which would be really cool.
Sure. When are the finals, Sarah? The international finals for this year?
I just lost you a little bit then. Can you say that again?
Yeah, sorry. When are the international finals this year?
So they're due to be the 17th to the 20th of July in Las Vegas. So I am holding out all hope that travel bans will be lifted and we'll be moving again. And yeah, I'm just going to
That's difficult.
That we're going.
Yeah, that's difficult timing, because it's actually about a week exactly before Galaxy Internationals were supposed to be held in Chicago, and they got moved back. So fingers crossed for you that's going to be, I think, touch and go. Megan Darlington has a question. She's asked, is this what Jennifer Michaela is an ambassador for? Do you know if Jennifer Michaela, I think she's Ms. World, isn't she?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Megan, I think it might be a different... I actually was wondering that as well, because there are a few systems, sometimes the names, Sarah, they just blend into one, and you don't really
and
know.
A slight play on the words for the different system and stuff, isn't there? So.
Yeah, and sometimes the words are just switched around and it's a completely different system, and that's when you get even more confused. So, Megan, you can ask Jennifer herself. I don't think so, though, but I could be wrong on that. Megan has also said that she's so excited for you. So, Sarah, just before we go to the final 10 questions, because I always end the interview with the same 10, is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to, or just say thanks, sponsors wise or support base wise, just for your journey along the last few years, both pageantry and weightlifting, and then I guess life in general as well?
Yeah, I mean, in pageantry, I think my true love for pageantry came when I started entering holiday systems through the Pageant Girl team, and that kind of saw me really grow and develop as a pageant girl and into the woman that I am now, and built the sisterhood of every single girl that supports me. In fact, it was only a few days ago I was getting all the throwbacks from Commonwealth Games, because it was obviously April 2018, and the amount of shares and stuff on Facebook of me that were from pageant girls was unbelievable. And that just shows the true sisterhood. And like you said, Danielle wanting to hold like a pageant Olympics and then watch me. So I am thankful to every single person that supports my journey and follows my journey, either the pageant side of it or the weightlifting side of it, or both. You know, it's crazy that I have 40,000 people on Instagram that are interested in my day-to-day life, and that still blows my mind. So I'm thankful to every single person that's on this journey for me. I have my weightlifting sponsors who basically help keep a roof over my head and allow me to keep training. Like I said, we don't get any government support.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful to that. And, you know, once all this lockdown is lifted, I'm hoping to get some stuff rolling in the pageant community and get some appearances going. And I've talked about it for a long time, and I'm going to finally make it happen, and to set up like a kind of seminar day for the pageant girls on like nutrition and stuff. Because I'm a qualified nutritionist too, and I think that's certainly an area of the industry that needs a little bit of attention to make sure everyone's looking after themselves. So that is my mission to myself for this year. So yeah, it's just a big thanks to everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I think that nutrition would be very, very worthwhile, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, unfortunately, from people who claim they know what they're doing, but they really, really don't. So some real information, I think, would be a very welcome change. Megan Darlington has said you have a heart of gold. So there you go.
Bless her.
Hopefully that will lead to a medal of gold as well.
That would be nice.
Sarah, the final 10 questions, they're not rapid fire. You don't have to answer them as quickly as you can. Although if you want to, you can. Maybe I should run a competition to see who can run through the final 10 the fastest, and then everyone will want to give it a go. But here we go, the final 10. The first question is, what is your favorite word?
Oh, that's like really out there, isn't it? Different. I feel like that sums me up. So
I like these questions run in pairs. So the first question was, what was your most favorite word? The second question is, what is your least favorite word?
I'm not one of these people that has those words, you know, like some people have like real freak outs with like moist and words like that, but I don't think I have one.
People, yeah, it's been a while since I've actually heard moist. A common one is no. I don't know if you resonate with that. A lot of people don't like being told no, as you've mentioned before.
Yeah, I'm one of those. If someone tells me no, I'm like, okay, you just watch.
I think we'll run with no then. I think that's as close as we'll get. Let's move on to question 3. In life, what gets you excited? What turns you on?
Competition, definitely. That can challenge, 100%. Like if there's a challenge, like I'm up for it. You know, one of the hardest things that I've had to do was I lost like the sports round, like for Holly's UK Power Pageant for like 2 years. And then I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't cope. This year I'm winning come hell or high water. And I did actually win in my final year. So definitely challenge.
How did you lose the sports round? What was his challenge? What did you have to do?
A lot of it is like body weight stuff and like holding a plank and things, which when you've got a bum as big as mine, it's basically like putting a 15-kilo disc on your back and doing a plank. So I felt like I was a little bit disadvantaged on that one.
How long did you have to hold the winning person? How long did they hold a plank for?
When I've done it previously, the girls have held it for like over 5 minutes.
That's insane. It
was crazy. Yeah, it's
that's
nuts. I don't know how they do it. And they're like head to head against each other, and it just literally comes down to whoever falls first.
Oh God, I've held it once for 5 minutes because I was doing it for my personal trainer, and I'm similar to yourself. I didn't want to fall down because she was there.
Yeah.
So she had to count me out. She said after 5 minutes that was enough. She got bored, but 5 minutes is not easy. Megan Darlington must have done it. She said it was brutal. Wow.
Yeah, she competed alongside me.
Okay. Question 4 there. So question 3 was what turns you on. Question 4 is what turns you off.
Body odor. No one likes someone that smells.
It's got to be an issue competing in what you compete in with all the guys. I mean, sometimes it's not pretty.
Oh, yeah, they stink. Their kit bags stink. It's disgusting.
I can imagine. I don't want to imagine, but I can imagine. All right. I think we'll leave that one to the imagination or not. Question 5. What sound or noise do you love?
I mean, it's kind of sad, but I like the sound of a dropping barbell in the gym. Like, it just makes me feel at home. Some people would be a little bit noisy, I guess, but...
That's what I mean. In a lot of gyms, you're technically not allowed to drop the bar because people don't like that noise because it scares everyone. But in the gyms that you live in, are you allowed to drop the bar?
Yeah, so the bars and the weights and the floor and the platforms and everything are all made so that you can drop it. Because obviously if you've got such a crazy amount of weight overhead, like you can't really control it down. Like gravity is going to take its toll at some point. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been training at the wrong gym. Laura Danielle Macmillan has said, hi, gal, with a lot of L's at the end.
She's my sister queen. So she was Miss Intercontinental Scotland, and we went away to the Philippines together. So.
Right. She's also said, mishearing your voice.
Oh, I miss you too. That Scottish accent gets me every time.
How strong is Laura's Scottish accent? Is it incomprehensible or not too bad?
It depends. If she goes off on a bit of a rant, then you have to struggle to kind of keep up with her. But she tries to keep it, a bit tamer, I think, so that we can all understand her.
Oh, I love the Scottish accent, but they all seem to speak a billion miles an hour, as you said. And when they get excited or they go on a rant, it's another language, and you just sit there and nod. Question 6: What sound or noise do you hate?
Screaming kids. A really high-pitched squeal, which is going to come as a bit of an issue at some point when I, hopefully have my own family. But like that, that's really shrill and it just, no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why God invented noise-cancelling headphones. Question 7. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I mean, I guess it kind of comes as a bit of an obvious one, that it'd probably strength.
That's the obvious one.
So that I could win the Olympics.
That's, and that's an easy pick. Laura has put a couple of laughing faces in there. Question 8. What job or occupation other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Ooh, that's a good one. Definitely something pretty like high-powered, like CEO of like a business. Like that would be pretty cool to be like boss lady. I mean, that's kind of life goals anyway. I'd like to work in like the business side of the sport, and I don't know, maybe be in charge of like the International Olympic Committee one day. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh wow, yeah, that would be very cool. Okay, question 9. What job or occupation other than your own would you definitely not like to attempt?
Something that involves bad smells. Like,
This seems to be a recurring theme.
you know, like a proper, like, working in a sewage plant or something like that would be like, no.
Do you, you said you don't really have a least favorite word, but I feel like I would ask, what's your least favorite smell?
Oh, so I used to have a dog, right, that had a bit of a poorly tummy, and he used to have an accident in the house, and that smell was disgusting. Like, even when he went for the surgery, the vets were like, my vet nurses left the room, it was that bad. Like, that's when you know it's bad, when the vet nurse can't even stomach an animal smell.
No. Okay. All right. Poor dog. All right. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That's really tough. I'm proud of you.
It is a tough one. I'm proud of you. Very nice. Sarah, just before, guys, if you have any more questions or messages for Sarah before I let her go, put them in the comments now. Just out of interest, Sarah, your weightlifting coaching business, is that mainly aimed at people who are experienced in the sport, or is it open for everyone from beginner to advanced?
It's kind of open from anyone of any level. Like, I don't just coach people that are competing internationally. Like, I coach people who have done it at beginner level. Generally, I'd like them to have some basic understanding of the movements.
Sure.
So, like, I've attended, like, CrossFit class and stuff. I have done it from complete beginners, and, like, all my online stuff. Like I said, I prefer them to have that background, but I do also run, like, in-person coaching and, like, workshops and stuff. So that allows for people to be more beginner-based and really new to the movements, to have them in front of me. But as you said earlier, like, the movements are so complex, to try and teach that virtually is very difficult. And again, going back to the nutrition thing with Pageants, like, it's something that I'd like to set up to have more general training within the business. So people who do just want to have general fitness goals away from weightlifting, and the more like physique goals and stuff, I'd like to set that up in the next couple of years to aim a little bit more at the pageant industry. So
sure,
that's the plan.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if I was to be coaching tennis virtually, it'd be, I guess, tough for a complete beginner. But if they had some knowledge, then it would make more sense. You could do stroke correction and technical analysis and things like that. Anyway, look, Sarah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. It was different doing a pageant podcast rather than a weightlifting one, although I feel like we did talk about weightlifting quite a bit too, but that's kind of what you get with me, I'm afraid.
Well, no, that's what I wanted to talk about as well, because it's very, very different. I think we might have talked more about weightlifting than the pageant, but that's okay. Sarah, I will keep you on the line for just a sec, but I'm going to let the audience go. Thanks to everyone for watching and submitting your questions and your comments. We will speak to you next time. All right, Sarah, just bear with me. I'm just going to make sure the stream wrapped up properly. Looks like it's all good. Amazing. All done. How are you feeling?
Perfect. Yeah, good. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was nice to do something a little bit different. Like, I've done some big weightlifting podcasts and stuff, but to have the other side of it is kind of cool. So, yeah, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
That's my pleasure. I'm fascinated by the business side of things as well. And especially at this time, there's a lot of businesses needing to shift to a bit more of an online, obviously, because you can't do a lot of this stuff in person anymore. So at some point, because I am looking to help people maybe set up online courses, or maybe, because obviously you can see what I'm doing live here is probably a bit more advanced than what most people are doing. And I have a background of tennis coaching. I've done that 10, 15 years. So if at some point you want to talk business, and because I would really love to help some people set up. I mean, I was talking about maybe doing an online pageant course, because there's a lot of good interview coaches out there. There are some coaches who coach walking as well, and obviously you're talking about probably not the weightlifting, but certainly nutrition and the fitness side of things. If at some point you have time or you have the space to do that, I'd love to talk to you about doing that, because I find the business side fascinating. Yeah, because I find the business side of it fascinating. So when you mentioned that about your pageant, I had no idea. That's actually something that I was looking at setting up at some point, if I ever set up a pageant, God forbid. But it would have a heavy entrepreneurial bent to it, because a lot of the time these girls have a platform and a charity, but once that's over, they still are going home, they're doing a job they hate, they can't travel, etc., etc. So I would love to help them embrace that entrepreneurial spirit and help them set up a business where they can work from anywhere in the world. Because
which is why I do what I do, because it allows me to travel. And when I'm competing, like I was after Gold Coast, I then took another 2 weeks. So I had 2 weeks prep camp in Brisbane, 2 weeks games time, and then I had another 2 weeks holiday, and I was earning money the whole time because I was still working, which was pretty cool.
See, I think I love that, because if just 10% or 20% of the girls could have a business where they could be paid from anywhere in the world, then the pageantry becomes so much easier. Whereas for a lot of them, they define themselves on the pageantry, but because they're sacrificing so much and you know how much these gowns can cost. I mean, they can cost absurd amounts, and they're sacrificing everything for that crown, and then if it doesn't happen, it's really they're not in a good place. And every time I put up a poll,
you've got girls spending that kind of money on a gown that could be going towards thousands. A house deposit, and it's like well, that's what insane. Danielle has always joked about. She said if she hadn't got into pageantry, she'd probably have a house by now, and given her wardrobe, that's not even an exaggeration. But every time I ask my audience, which is obviously heavily, it's like 90% pageant girls, are they interested in setting up a business someday, or an app, or a charity? It's unanimously yes. They're all interested in it. So I would love to have a chat to you at some point about doing that, not only to help yourself, but I think it would inspire a lot of the other pageant girls to do something similar as well, like set up a genuine business, not just an Instagram or a social media account. But we can talk about that another time. Yeah, that'd be cool. Definitely. I'll get involved with that for sure.
Okay. Perfect. Well, it was lovely talking to you. That was very, very different.
Hopefully the viewers enjoyed it being a little bit different, and it wasn't a bit too much like out there for them.
That was a lot my fault, because I am fascinated by Olympic lifting. As I said, I never thought I would love it, and that was the last thing I ever thought I would love. And then I wanted to try CrossFit because I was doing an interview and I wanted to find out about CrossFit, and then I did it and I got hooked into the Olympic lifting side of it, not the CrossFit side of it, but the Olympic lifting side of it. And it was just so technical and demanded so much concentration that it forced you to forget everything else. Because as you would know, if you're lifting something that's 3 times your body weight, if you're thinking about something else, it's going to end really, really badly.
It goes really wrong, trust me.
Very, very quickly, which is why I said you should start a TikTok, because I'm sure you'll have no shortage of weightlifting bloopers.
Yeah, but next time you're in the UK, I'm going to make you do a training session with me. How about that?
I've been missing the weights. All the moment I can do is I've got a 20 kilo kettlebell here, so that's all the weight I've got, and then the rest is all body weight stuff, which I do find a little bit boring compared to the lifting. I miss the lifting, but that sounds like a deal. I mean, it won't be any competition for you, that's for sure, but I better get training now. I certainly can't lift 3 times my body weight. But look, it was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll chat again soon about the business side of things, and we'll see what we can set up there.
Yeah, perfect. Enjoy the rest of your day. You've got a lot of it left now, so.
It's almost 7 a.m. Almost. Okay, perfect. Well, you enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. What's up, guys? It's Adrian again. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to head over to pageantlaunch.com. Join our launch team for our review site. It's super important to all of us to make sure that the industry is safe, transparent, and fair. So head over to pageantlaunch.com, write in your email address, and we'll speak to you next time.